cold wind blew fiercely across the barren land of the Deathworld. Dark clouds covered the sky, and the ground shook beneath the heavy footsteps of the soldiers. The air was thick with dust and danger. This was no ordinary planet. It was a place where only the strongest could live, and even they had to fight every moment to survive. The humans had come here to train. They wanted to become warriors, to learn how to survive on this cruel planet. But the planet seemed to fight back at every step. The sky was always gray, the storms were sudden and violent, and the ground hid dangers beneath the surface. Nothing was easy. Lieutenant Carter stood at the edge of the training field, watching the human soldiers struggle. Sweat ran down his face, mixing with the dirt and grime. His boots sank slightly into the soft, dusty earth with each step. He was the instructor here, one of the toughest soldiers in the entire galaxy. He had trained many species, but he had never seen anything like this. He laughed quietly to himself. The humans looked weak. Their movements were slow. Their breathing was heavy. They were not ready for the Deathworld. Look at them, Carter said to himself. They can't last a day here. They don't belong. The humans were trying hard. They ran through obstacle courses, climbed rocky cliffs, and fought simulated enemies. But each step was harder than the last. Many of them stumbled and fell. Some even sat down, too tired to continue. Captain Mira, one of the human leaders, stood near the center of the field. She wiped her brow and called out orders. Keep moving. We can do this. Stay strong. Her voice was steady, but inside she worried. The storms were coming. Everyone knew the stories, how the Deathworld storms could tear through a squad in minutes. The wind could rip the skin from your bones, and the dust could blind you forever. Suddenly, a loud alarm sounded through the training camp. Red lights flashed, and the soldiers stopped what they were doing. The Deathworld storm was coming sooner than expected. Lieutenant Carter's face changed. The joke was over. He turned to the human soldiers and shouted, "Prepare yourselves. This storm will test you like nothing else." The humans hurried to find shelter. The few strong buildings on the base were crowded with frightened faces. Outside, the wind began to howl, carrying dust and rocks like weapons. Captain Mira helped a young soldier, Private Lee, to a shelter. He was coughing and struggling to breathe. "Stay with me, Private," she said firmly. "You can make it." But the storm was growing worse by the second. The sky darkened even more. Thunder roared like a beast, and lightning split the sky. Lieutenant Carter stood outside, watching. His arms crossed. He felt a strange mix of pride and doubt. These humans were not like the others. They kept fighting, even when the odds were against them. Maybe they were stronger than he thought. A sudden roar came from the cliffs nearby. A rock slide. Huge boulders began to fall, smashing everything in their path. The storm was not just the wind and dust. It was the planet itself fighting back. Inside the shelter, the soldiers huddled together. Some prayed, some cried. Others stared into the dark, trying to stay calm. Captain Mira looked around. "We need to hold on until the storm passes. We can't give up." Suddenly, the lights went out. The shelter was pitch black, except for the flashes of lightning outside. A young soldier screamed. Outside, Lieutenant Carter heard a faint call. "Help! Help me!" He didn't hesitate. Against his better judgment, he ran into the storm. The wind nearly threw him to the ground. Dust filled his eyes, and rocks hit his armor. He found Private Lee pinned under a fallen beam. The young soldier's face was pale, and his breathing was shallow. Carter grabbed the beam and lifted it with all his strength. "Stay with me, Lee. Help is coming." Lee tried to nod, but was too weak. The storm screamed louder, and Carter knew they had little time. Suddenly, another crash sounded behind them. More rocks were falling. Carter pulled Lee up and started running back toward the shelter. Every step was a fight. The wind pushed him, and his boots slipped on the loose stones. But he did not stop. Back in the shelter, Captain Mira waited, hoping they would come back. Her heart beat fast. This storm was the worst she had ever seen. Carter finally burst through the door, dragging Lee with him. The soldiers cheered softly. Lee was alive. The storm raged outside for hours. Inside, the soldiers shared water and bandaged wounds. They told stories to keep their minds off the storm. Lieutenant Carter looked around the room. These humans were different. They had fear, but they also had courage. Even in the worst moment, they did not give up. When the storm finally stopped, the soldiers came outside to see the damage. Trees were broken, rocks were scattered everywhere, and the ground was torn apart. Captain Mira looked at her team. "We survived," she said quietly. "We are stronger than we knew." Lieutenant Carter nodded. For the first time, he smiled. "Maybe you humans are tougher than I thought." The Deathworld had tested them, and they had passed the test. But this was only the beginning. The storm had passed, but the Deathworld was far from calm. A thick silence hung over the land like a heavy blanket, covering the scars left by the violent winds. The soldiers stepped out cautiously, eyes scanning the broken landscape around them. Captain Mira led the group, her face marked with fatigue, but shining with determination. She knew this was just the start. The planet had many secrets, and it did not give up easily. Lieutenant Carter stood nearby, watching the humans. He no longer laughed at their endurance. Something had changed in his mind. These humans had surprised him. They fought the storm, and they survived. But now, a new danger was coming, one no one could see yet. "Stay alert," Carter warned, his voice low. "The storm hides more than wind and rocks. This planet is alive in ways you don't understand." Myra nodded, gripping her weapon tightly. The humans moved through the damaged terrain, careful of every step. The ground was cracked and uneven, and strange sounds echoed in the distance. Suddenly, from behind a shattered rock formation, something moved. A shadow, quick and silent, slipped between the ruins. The soldiers froze. "Did you see that?" whispered Private Lee, his voice trembling. "No," Myra said sharply, "but we're not alone." The team spread out, weapons ready. The alien creatures native to the Deathworld were known for their cunning and speed. Many were deadly predators, and some were invisible hunters, striking without warning. Lieutenant Carter pointed to deep footprints in the dirt too large and heavy to be human. "Something big came through here," he said. A growl echoed nearby. The soldiers turned to see glowing eyes watching from the dark. A beast emerged larger than any human, covered in thick scales and sharp claws. The creature moved fast, attacking before anyone could react. Bullets flew, but the beast dodged with frightening skill. The fight was brutal and chaotic. Captain Myra shouted orders, pushing her team to work together. "Aim for the eyes. Don't let it reach us." The beast roared in pain, but it was not defeated. It lunged again, knocking one soldier to the ground. The others fought harder, refusing to lose their comrade. Finally, after a tense battle, the creature collapsed. The ground trembled as the team caught their breath. "Is this what the storm was warning us about?" Lee asked, still shaking. "Part of it," Carter said grimly. "The storm woke them. They've been hiding. Now they're hungry." The team moved deeper into the wilderness, knowing the dangers were far from over. Each step brought new challenges: poisonous plants, hidden traps, and strange noises that made their skin crawl. At night, around the small fire, the soldiers shared stories of their home worlds. They laughed and cried, trying to hold on to hope. But everyone knew the Deathworld was changing them, making them stronger, but also more fearful. Captain Myra looked at her team and thought, "We have to survive. Not just for ourselves, but for everyone depending on us." Lieutenant Carter Once a skeptic, felt a strange respect for these humans. They had something no one else had, a fierce will to live against impossible odds. The shadows of the storm had passed, but the shadows of the Deathworld were just beginning to fall. The Deathworld sun was weak and distant behind the thick clouds. The air was heavy and still, but the soldiers knew this calm would not last long. Every sound felt louder, the crunch of broken rocks underfoot, the distant rustling of strange plants, and the quiet breathing of their team. Captain Mira led her squad carefully. Her eyes scanned the strange landscape, always watching for the next danger. They had survived the storm. They had fought the beast. But the worst part was still waiting, something hidden, something silent. Lieutenant Carter walked beside her, his usual stern face softer now, but alert. The humans surprised him every day, their strength and will pushing past limits he never expected. "We can't let our guard down," he warned. The storm didn't just bring the beast. It woke something else. The soldiers tightened their grip on their weapons. Private Lee, still shaken but stronger now, looked around nervously. "What do you mean? Something else?" Carter's eyes narrowed. The Deathworld hides many secrets. The storm is like a call something underground is waking. As they moved forward, the ground suddenly shook slightly beneath their feet. Small dust clouds rose from cracks in the earth. The team stopped, looking around with growing unease. "Do you hear that?" Myra asked quietly. At first, there was only silence. Then, a soft humming sound, low and strange, began to fill the air. It was not wind. It was not animals. It was something deeper, alive and dangerous. Suddenly, the humming stopped. A quiet click echoed. Then another. The soldiers' eyes widened in shock. Metal panels beneath the dirt slid open slowly, revealing sharp, mechanical legs. From underground, robotic creatures crawled out, machines designed for war, but long forgotten. Lieutenant Carter cursed under his breath. The planet's old defenses. They've activated. The robots were fast and deadly. Their glowing red eyes scanned the humans, and their weapons powered up with cold precision. The soldiers fired, but the machines moved in perfect unison. One of the robots grabbed Private Lee and slammed him against a rock. The team rushed to help, fighting desperately. Captain Myra shouted, "Fall back! Regroup at the ridge." The soldiers pulled back through the broken land, dodging blasts and sharp claws. The robots advanced, relentless and terrifying. At the ridge, Mira's team caught their breath. Lee was hurt but alive. His breathing was heavy, and blood stained his uniform. "We can't stay here," Mira said. "Those machines will keep coming. We need to find the control center, shut them down." Lieutenant Carter looked grim. "I know where it is. There's an old bunker a few clicks east. It might have the controls." The team prepared to move again. The weight of the Deathworld pressed down on them. Every step was a risk. Every shadow might hide another enemy. As they walked, the planet seemed to watch them. Strange lights flickered in the distance. Strange sounds whispered in the wind. The Deathworld was alive in a way they did not understand. Night fell, and the temperature dropped suddenly. The soldiers huddled together for warmth, but sleep was impossible. Every noise made them jump. Every shadow seemed to move. Captain Myra stared at the stars barely visible through the clouds. She thought of home, of green forests, warm sunlight, and safe places. Here, there was none of that. Only danger. Lieutenant Carter broke the silence. "Tomorrow, we end this. We find that bunker, and we stop the machines. We survive." The team nodded, though fear still burned in their eyes. The next day, the soldiers moved quickly, but carefully. The path to the bunker was rough and full of traps. Poisonous plants snapped like jaws, and strange creatures watched from hidden places. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled again. This time, the earth cracked open, and a deep growl echoed from below. From the shadows, a giant mechanical beast emerged. Bigger than the first creature they fought, it had multiple legs and glowing weapons mounted on its back. Its eyes burned with cold, red fire. "Run!" Mira yelled. The soldiers sprinted across the broken ground, dodging blasts and falling rocks. Lieutenant Carter fired at the beast's legs, trying to slow it down. Private Lee covered the rear, though his injured arm slowed him. The team reached the bunker entrance just in time. Heavy metal doors slammed shut behind them, blocking the beast's path. Inside, the bunker was dark and cold. Strange machines hummed in the walls, and the air smelled of oil and metal. Captain Mira led the group through narrow hallways, guided by an old map Carter had memorized. They reached a large control room filled with glowing screens and blinking lights. Lieutenant Carter went to work on the controls. "If I can override the system, I can shut down the machines." The soldiers stood guard, listening to the sounds of the planet outside, the growls, the footsteps, the storms. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, Carter's fingers pressed the final sequence. The machines outside powered down one by one. The Deathworld grew quiet again. The soldiers sighed with relief. Captain Mira looked at her team and smiled, tired but proud. "We did it. We survived the silent threat." But as they left the bunker, a deep rumble shook the ground beneath their feet. The Deathworld was not done with them yet. The ground trembled beneath the soldiers' feet as they stepped out of the bunker. The silence they had fought so hard to restore was breaking again. The Deathworld was restless, and it was waking up something far older and more dangerous than machines or beasts. Captain Mira looked at her team, tired, battered, but still standing. The fire of survival burned in their eyes. They had survived storms, creatures, and war machines. But now, something deeper was calling. Lieutenant Carter studied the cracked earth ahead. "There's a place nearby the heart of the Deathworld. It's where all this power comes from. The storms, the creatures, the machines, they're all connected." Myra swallowed hard. "If we don't stop it there, this planet will destroy us all." The team moved cautiously toward the heart. The landscape changed. The sky darkened as swirling clouds gathered. Strange plants with glowing leaves stretched toward the stormy sky, and the ground pulsed like a living thing. Private Lee, still weak from his injury, asked, "What is the heart? A machine? A power source?" Carter shook his head. "It's more than that. It's alive. A core buried deep underground, feeding energy to the planet. It controls everything." As they descended into a deep valley, the storm returned. Thunder cracked like giant fists hitting the earth, and lightning lit up the twisted shapes of rock formations. The wind howled, carrying whispers that made the soldiers shiver. Suddenly, the ground beneath them cracked open again, and from the shadows, figures appeared. Not machines this time, tall, shadowy beings, moving like smoke in the wind. Their eyes glowed faintly, and their voices echoed in the soldiers' minds. "You are not welcome here," one of the beings said. Its voice both beautiful and terrifying. Captain Mira raised her weapon, but lowered it slowly. These were not enemies like before. They were guardians, protectors of the Deathworld's heart. "We mean no harm," Mira said carefully. "We want to stop the destruction, to save lives." The shadow beings studied the humans silently. Then their leader spoke again. "If you seek the heart, you must prove your worth. Only those who face the trial may pass." The soldiers exchanged worried glances. Carter stepped forward. "We are ready." The ground shook once more, and the valley transformed. Walls of glowing crystal rose around them, creating a labyrinth filled with light and shadows. The trial had begun. Inside the labyrinth, The soldiers faced visions, memories from their past, fears, and doubts. Each step tested their mind and heart. Private Lee saw his family, safe at home, and the fear of never seeing them again. He wanted to turn back, but pushed forward. Remembering why he fought. Captain Mira faced doubts about her leadership, moments when she had failed her team. But she found strength in their trust. Lieutenant Carter relived battles and losses, haunted by choices he could not change. The labyrinth forced him to forgive himself. The trials were difficult, but the soldiers grew stronger with each challenge. The heart of the Deathworld was testing not just their bodies, but their souls. Finally, they reached the center of the labyrinth, a vast cavern glowing with blue light. At the center, a pulsating crystal hovered above the ground, its energy radiating like the beating heart of a giant. The shadow beings appeared again. This is the core. It feeds the planet and controls its power. Myra stepped forward. Can we stop it? Will the planet die if we do? The leader's voice was calm, but serious. The core is life. To stop it is to risk everything. But if it continues, your people will perish. Lieutenant Carter studied the crystal. We must find a way to control it, not destroy it. The team worked quickly, using their knowledge and the tools they had salvaged. The core responded to their touch, pulsing slower, its energy calming. But the Deathworld was fighting back. The ground trembled violently. Cracks spread like lightning, and the storm roared louder. Hold on, Mira shouted as the cavern shook. Rocks fell around them, and the glowing crystal flickered in a final burst of energy. The core stabilized. The storm outside slowed, the sky brightened slightly, and the planet seemed to breathe easier. The shadow beings nodded in approval. You have passed the trial. The Deathworld accepts your strength and will. As the team made their way back to the surface, the planet's harshness lessened. The air felt lighter, the ground firmer. Captain Mira looked at her soldiers, pride shining in her eyes. We survived the heart. Now we have a chance to bring hope. Lieutenant Carter smiled for the first time in a long time. Humans are stronger than I ever believed. The Deathworld was still dangerous, but the future was no longer so dark. The Deathworld skies were clearing, but the air still carried a restless tension. The team moved cautiously through the recovering landscape, alert to every sound. The pulse of the core beneath their feet was faint but steady, as if the planet was settling after a deep breath. Captain Mira walked alongside Lieutenant Carter, both aware this was only a temporary calm. The core had changed things, but it hadn't stopped the planet's hunger. Private Lee limped behind the group, his injury slowing him, but his spirit remained unbroken. The soldiers had survived storms, beasts, machines, and a heart's trial, but the Deathworld still held secrets beneath its surface. Suddenly, the ground trembled violently. This time, it wasn't the core's pulse. It was something else, something moving below. Everyone, brace yourselves. Mira shouted. The earth cracked open near them, splitting wide like a giant's mouth. From the depths emerged long, slender shapes covered in a thick, oily shell, massive subterranean creatures known as the echo worms. They had been disturbed by the core's shifting energy, and now they were hungry and angry. The worms hissed and slithered, their segmented bodies glowing faintly with bioluminescent patterns. Their many eyes reflected the stormy sky as they lunged at the soldiers with terrifying speed. Mira raised her weapon, firing rapidly. The worms were tough bullets bounced off their shells, and their long, whip-like tails lashed out, knocking several soldiers to the ground. Lieutenant Carter shouted, "Target the weak spots near their eyes and joints. Use everything you've got." The soldiers fought fiercely, but the worms seemed endless. The battlefield quickly became a chaotic nightmare of dust, screams, and flashing weapons. Private Lee saw one worm coil around a fallen soldier, squeezing with deadly force. Summoning all his strength, Lee charged and stabbed the creature's glowing eye with his combat knife. The worm recoiled, releasing the soldier. "Keep pushing," Mira commanded, her voice steady despite the chaos. "We cannot fall here." Amid the fighting, the ground beneath them started to crack, again this time revealing a narrow tunnel leading deep underground. Carter spotted it. That tunnel, it might lead to the core's source. If we can get there, maybe we can stop this. With no time to lose, Mira ordered, "Cover fire." "We're moving in." The soldiers rushed towards the tunnel entrance as the worms swarmed behind them. Inside, the air was thick and humid, filled with strange sounds, whispers of wind and faint, mechanical hums. The tunnel walls glowed faintly with the same bioluminescent light as the worms. Strange symbols etched in the rock pulsed with energy, casting eerie shadows. As they moved deeper, they found remnants of an ancient civilization, long forgotten machines and carvings depicting the Deathworld's history. Lieutenant Carter studied the carvings closely. These people lived here before the storms, before the core awakened. They built the machines to protect the planet, but something went wrong. Captain Myra touched one of the carvings, feeling a strange warmth. Maybe the core isn't just a power source, it's a prison. Something locked away, or trapped. The soldiers pressed on until they reached a vast underground chamber. At its center was a massive dark crystal, unlike the glowing blue core above. This one pulsed with a deep red light, casting long shadows. "The heart source," Carter whispered. Suddenly, the chamber shook violently. The red crystal cracked, and a shadowy figure emerged, a being of smoke and darkness. With eyes like burning coal, the Deathworld's true guardian had awoken. The creature spoke in a voice like thunder. "You do not belong here. Leave or be destroyed." Myra stepped forward, refusing to back down. "We are here to save lives, to stop the destruction." The guardian laughed, a sound that echoed through the chamber like a storm. "To save lives, you must destroy what keeps this world alive." A fierce battle erupted. The soldiers fought the guardian, using everything they had learned. The air crackled with energy and fire as the dark being attacked with powerful waves of shadow. Private Lee dodged a strike and fired his weapon directly at the guardian's core. The creature roared in pain, but kept coming. Lieutenant Carter focused on the red crystal, trying to find a way to seal its power. "If we can close this, we might control the core, save the planet without destroying it." Mira covered Carter, holding the guardian back. "Do it fast." With a final surge of energy, Carter activated a device that emitted a bright light, wrapping the red crystal in chains of pure energy. The guardian screamed, its form flickering and breaking apart. The crystal cracked, and then pulsed with calm blue light. The Deathworld's heart was finally balanced. Exhausted, but victorious, the soldiers made their way back to the surface. The planet felt different, now less hostile, more alive in a gentle way. Captain Mira looked at her team. "We changed this world today. We survived the echo beneath the surface." Lieutenant Carter smiled. "And maybe, just maybe, we've earned a new chance." The Deathworld was still dangerous, but hope had taken root. The Deathworld skies had cleared, but a strange quiet settled over the landscape. The core's balance was restored, and the massive guardian was no longer a threat, or so the soldiers hoped. Yet, deep in their hearts, each of them felt an unease they couldn't shake. Captain Myra scanned the horizon as her squad moved cautiously through the alien terrain. The air still hummed faintly with the planet's power. The storm had passed, the echo worms were defeated, and the Deathworld seemed to breathe easier. But now, a new mystery called out. Lieutenant Carter adjusted the scanner strapped to his arm, the device blinking rapidly. "There's a signal," he said, voice low and tense. "It's faint, but definitely artificial." Myra stopped and looked at him. "Artificial? After everything we've faced here, you think someone else is on this planet?" Carter nodded. "Or maybe something was left behind." Private Lee, moving slowly to keep pace, looked over with curiosity. "A signal? Could it be a rescue call?" "No," Carter replied, shaking his head. "This signal isn't a call for help, it's a warning." The squad gathered around as Carter tapped the scanner, amplifying the faint sound. The signal was a series of rhythmic pulses, like a heartbeat, but with strange patterns woven into it. Myra's mind raced. What could it mean? And who sent it? They decided to follow the signal, moving carefully across the rocky terrain. The path led them toward a jagged mountain range. Where shadows stretched long and deep as they climbed, the pulses grew stronger. The air thickened with electricity, and the ground beneath their boots seemed to hum in time with the signal. Near the summit, they found a hidden cave, its entrance almost swallowed by twisted vines and glowing moss. The signal was strongest here. Inside the cave, the walls glistened with crystals that pulsed softly. The squad moved deeper, weapons ready. The silence was heavy, broken only by the soft tapping of their footsteps at the heart of the cave. They found an ancient console, half buried in dust and rubble. Its screen flickered weakly, but the pulses were coming from this machine. Lieutenant Carter wiped away layers of grime and activated the console fully. Suddenly, the screen flared to life, displaying an old message in a language long forgotten, symbols that shimmered and shifted. Mira frowned. "Can you read it?" Carter nodded slowly. "It's a warning from the original inhabitants of the Deathworld. They created this machine to protect their world, but something went wrong. They tried to seal away a great evil beneath the planet." The squad exchanged uneasy looks. The message continued, revealing that the core they had balanced was actually a seal holding back a terrible force that had once nearly destroyed the planet. Private Lee's voice trembled. "So, the Guardian we fought wasn't the real enemy?" "Exactly," Carter said grimly. "The Guardian was a sentinel, protecting the seal. If the seal breaks, that evil will rise again." Suddenly, the cave began to tremble. Dust fell from the ceiling, and distant rumbling echoed through the tunnels. Mira shouted, "We need to get out now." They sprinted back toward the entrance as the cave shook violently. Rocks tumbled behind them, blocking their path. The mountain itself seemed to be closing in. Outside, the squad gasped, watching as a deep fissure opened along the mountainside. From the crack, a dark mist seeped out, curling like smoke. The Deathworld's true enemy was stirring. Myra raised her weapon. "We thought the worst was over." "We were wrong." Lieutenant Carter stared at the spreading darkness. The seal was weakening. "That mist, it's the beginning of something ancient. And deadly." Private Lee gripped his knife tightly. "What do we do?" Myra's eyes hardened. "We find a way to strengthen the seal. Or we fight whatever comes next." The team prepared for the unknown. Their journey was far from over. The Deathworld was waking up, and its forgotten dangers were coming alive. The Deathworld's air had turned cold again. The sky was heavy with dark clouds, swirling like a cauldron ready to spill fire. Captain Mira and her squad stood at the edge of the widening fissure, watching the black mist snake out like a living shadow. It moved slow but powerful, an ancient darkness leaking back into the world. Lieutenant Carter's face was grim. "This mist, it's not just smoke. It's a sign. The evil sealed beneath the planet is waking." Private Lee's fingers clenched tightly around his weapon. "If that thing breaks free, what chance do we have?" Myra's jaw tightened. "We fight. We don't have a choice." The squad moved quickly, gathering their gear and preparing for what lay ahead. The fissure was growing, swallowing trees, cracking the ground. The Deathworld was waking up, angry and dangerous like never before. "We need to find the original seal chamber," Carter said, "the place where the core connects to the deepest part of the planet. If we can reinforce it, maybe we can stop the darkness from spreading." The team made their way toward the coordinates the ancient console had revealed in the cave. The path was treacherous deep chasms, shifting rocks, and pockets of toxic gas filled the air. Every step was a fight. Suddenly, a low roar echoed from the dark forest nearby. Shadows moved between the trees' creatures, twisted by the returning darkness. Their eyes glowed red, and their bodies were covered in sharp black scales. Mira raised her weapon. "Defensive positions. Don't let them surround us." The creatures attacked with brutal speed, claws tearing at armor and teeth snapping dangerously close. The soldiers fought hard, their teamwork saving them from being overwhelmed. Private Lee ducked a strike and slashed back with his knife, while Carter fired precise shots, aiming for the creature's glowing eyes. After the intense battle, the creatures retreated into the shadows. But the squad knew more were coming. "We have to keep moving," Mira urged. "The seal chamber is close." The ground grew warmer as they descended into a massive cavern deep underground. The walls pulsed with eerie light, and strange runes glowed faintly. At the center of the cavern stood a giant stone structure, covered in ancient carvings and metal plates. A gate, glowing with energy. "This must be it," Carter said. "The original seal chamber." As they approached, the dark mist seeped in through cracks in the floor, swirling like a living thing, trying to break through. Myra stepped forward. "We need to activate the seal device." Carter began working on the control panel embedded in the gate. His fingers flew over the buttons, the machine responding with hums and clicks. Suddenly, the mist thickened and formed a shadowy figure, a monstrous being with glowing red eyes and claws like blades. It hissed, moving to attack. The squad fired together, but the creature seemed almost unstoppable. Mira shouted, "Focus on Carter. He has to finish the seal." The battle was fierce. The darkness clawed and struck, but the soldiers held the line. Carter's hands trembled as he completed the final steps, pushing buttons and pulling levers. A bright light exploded from the gate, pushing back the darkness. The shadow beast screamed and dissolved into smoke. The seal reactivated. The mist was sucked back into the fissure, the darkness retreating deep beneath the planet once more. The ground stopped shaking. The sky above cleared slowly, revealing stars twinkling again. Mira looked at her team, exhausted but alive. "We held the darkness back." Lieutenant Carter nodded. "For now. But this planet, it's not done with us yet." Private Lee smiled weakly. "We survived the storm, the machines, the beasts, and the darkness. What's next?" Mira smiled faintly. "Whatever it is, we face it together." The Deathworld was still dangerous, but the humans had proven they could survive, and maybe even change its fate. The Deathworld sky was no longer a threatening gray, but a soft, muted blue, the first sign of dawn in many cycles. Captain Mira and her team stood at the edge of the settlement they had fought so hard to protect. The air was fresher, almost warm, but beneath the calm was a cautious hope. Lieutenant Carter surveyed the horizon. "The seal holds. The darkness has been pushed back for now. But this planet, it's changing. It's waking up in ways we don't understand." Private Lee adjusted his gear, still nursing his wounds, but smiling more freely than before. "We came here to survive. Now, it feels like we're here to rebuild." Myra looked at her team. "We've survived storms, beasts, machines, and shadows. We've faced the heart of this world and lived. Now we have a choice." The settlement was small, but growing human tents mixed with alien structures that seemed to pulse with the planet's energy. Scientists and engineers worked alongside soldiers, trying to understand the Deathworld's mysteries and build a future. Mira remembered the early days, the cruel storms, the harsh tests, the battles for survival. Those days felt like a distant nightmare. Now, she saw a new purpose in the soldiers' eyes. They were no longer just survivors. They were pioneers. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the horizon, Mira stood alone at the cliff's edge. The planet stretched out before her, wild, dangerous, but alive. A soft sound broke the silence, a rhythmic pulse, gentle and steady. The core's energy. It no longer throbbed with rage, but with life. Lieutenant Carter joined her quietly. "The Deathworld is healing." Myra nodded. "And so are we." Suddenly, the ground trembled faintly beneath them, not with violence, but with the heartbeat of a world renewed. Back in the settlement, the team gathered for a final meeting. Scientists shared new data, showing the planet's energy could be harnessed for life, not destruction. The dark past was fading, replaced by a fragile hope. Captain Mira addressed her team, her voice steady and strong. "We came here to survive. Now we stay to live, to build, to protect. The Deathworld may be harsh, but it is our home now." The soldiers cheered softly. They had fought hard and lost much, but they had won something greater. Hope. Lieutenant Carter smiled. "This is only the beginning." Private Lee laughed. "I never thought I'd say this, but I'm ready for whatever comes next." As the stars twinkled above, the Deathworld breathed a new breath, one of life, promise, and a future shaped by those brave enough to fight for it. The darkness was gone for now, and a new dawn had begun.